Welcome to the module on flexible payments. Today we will be discussing about the mixed design of dense bituminous macadam, commonly known as DBM, using MS2 method, that is Marshall Stability Method. What is DBM? DBM stands for dense bituminous macadam, which is basically a binder course used for roads with a more number of heavy commercial vehicles and a close graded premix material having a voids content of 5 to 10% in the field. In DBM mix, there is a wide scope of varying the gradation to obtain the good mix without affecting the durability of the pavement. So we can say that DBM is a closely graded mix used as a binder course for pavements subjected to heavy traffic, and hydrated lime or cement is used as filler if the mix fails to meet the water sensitivity requirements. What is the purpose of providing DBM in the flexible pavement? This layer provides the bulk of asphalt concrete structure. Its main purpose is to distribute load to the base course. The binder course generally consists of aggregates having less asphalt and doesn't require quality as high as the surface course. So replacing part of the surface course by the binder course results in a more economical design. So if you remember the pavement design based on IRC 37, that is the crust design of flexible pavement based on IRC 37, you can see that there are three elements. One is the subgrade, then non-bituminous layers, and then the bituminous layers. So from the MSA point of view, from the CBR point of view, you will get the thickness of the bituminous layer, which can be a combination of two layers. One is wearing course and then the binder course. So that's what the purpose of providing a binder course is, because in DBM, the design of DBM is being done at a lesser percentage of bitumen content as compared to BC, and thus the cost of DBM is less as compared to the cost of BC. So thereby overall reducing the cost of the structure in flexible pavement. If you see the composition of DBM pavement layers as given in MORTH revision 5, that is table 510, it is consisting of two grades, grade 1 and grade 2. The nominal aggregate size for grade 1 is 37.5 millimeters and for grade 2 is 26.5 millimeters. The layer thickness one can do with grading 1 is ranging between 75 to 100 millimeters, and the layer thickness the one can do with DBM grade 2, where the nominal aggregate size is 26.5, is 50 to 75 millimeters. Now when we say nominal aggregate size, it is the size of the aggregate through which 90 to 100% of the material is passing. That means 100% of aggregates is not passing from this particular size, and maximum size of aggregate is the size of the sieve from where the 100% aggregate is passing. So this is the grading curve generally given in MORTH revision 5 for grading 1 and grading 2. For grading 1, you require a minimum binder content or minimum bitumen content by mass of the total mix is 4%, whereas for grading 2 it is 4.5%. Why? Because grading 2 is finer as compared to grading 1, and as the finer part increases, the surface area increases, and thus increasing the bitumen content or the binder content of the mixes. As rightly said, the nominal size of aggregate is 37.5 because 95 to 100% of the material is passing through this sieve, and in grading 2, 26.5 is the nominal size of the aggregate because 90 to 100% of the aggregates are passing through this particular sieves. And if you see the maximum size of the aggregate, the maximum size of aggregate for grading 1 is 45, and the maximum size of aggregate for grading 2 is 37.5. So when you go for a design of a DBM, either grade 1 or grade 2, you need to satisfy these grading requirements first by combining different aggregates, which is 40, 20, 10 and stone dust. Once the grading requirement is done, you can select the materials, and then you have to choose the mineral fillers, for which again you have a grading requirement, that is 600 passing, 300 passing and 75 micron passing. So the material which you can be used as a filler should have 100% passing from 600 micron seals, 0.6 millimeter seals, and 95 to 100% passing from 0.3 millimeter sieve, and 0.075 mm sieve, 85 to 100% is passing. So this is the combination of aggregates as well as the mineral fillers if it is required to be added in DBM grade 1 or grade 2 as given in MORTH requirements. Coming to the design requirements for DBM, which is again given in MORTH revision 5, that is the extract of table 511. It says that the compaction level one has to follow is 75 blows on each face of the specimen. That means you have a mold where you need to fill up the bituminous materials and then compact it on from either side 75 blows. The stability requirements are for bitumen it is 9 kilonewtons tested at 60 degrees centigrades. Under hot climates if you are using it has to be 12, and under cold climatic conditions it is to be 10 kilonewtons minimum stability is required, and the test method is as per ASTO T245. Then you need to see the Marshall's flow, which is again ranging from 2 to 4 for viscosity grade bitumens, and 2.5 to 4 for modified bitumens under hot climatic conditions, and 3.5 to 5 for modified bitumen under cold climatic conditions. Again, the test is being conducted as per ASTO T245. Then you need to check the Marshall quotients, the percentage air voids, which is in the range of 3 to 5% for all these cases. Percentage voids filled with bitumen should be in the range of 65 to 75. Coating of aggregate particles, which is minimum 95% is required when tested as per IS 6241, is given as 95%. The tensile strength ratio that is being tested as per ASTO T283, the requirement is minimum 80%, and percentage voids in mineral aggregates, that is VMA, minimum percent voids in mineral aggregates are set out in table 500.12, which will be discussed in detail in the subsequent slides. Once the grading is decided, like which grading you have to follow, then you need to check your aggregates, the proportion of the aggregates which can be used to meet the grading requirements as given in MORTH table 500.11 as discussed previously. So how this is being done is the same rule like we do in WMM and GSB. Like for individual gradings, individual aggregates, you need to see and check the percentage passing for individual aggregates from the set of sieves which is being utilized for grading 1 or grading 2. In this particular case, we have used grading 2. So that is the reason why from 37.5 you have 100% passing, and the limit is also 100% passing. Now from individual percentage passing, you need to blend that aggregates theoretically, like in this particular case we are adding 30% of 25 mm aggregate, 30% of 10 mm aggregate, 38% of dust and 2% of filler. If we are combining these different types of aggregates in this proportion, then the theoretical combination of percentage passing is we are getting is shown in the JMF, that is called job mix formula, which is in line with the percentage passings given in the MORTH table. Now once you know the percentage passing at each sieve, you can get the tolerance on the JMF with respect to each sieve, and then you get the JMF limits, permissible variations from JMF upper limit and lower limit, which is closer than the actual percentage passing in the envelope. So that is means your aggregate, when you are plotting the blending of aggregates on a graph, you can have the outermost boundary which shows the percentage passing as per grading 1 and grading 2. Then the percentage combination will give you a percentage passing, which will be basically the center line or the median line of the percentage passing of aggregates, and covering these percentage passing and closer to the outer limits is the JMF limit. So JMF limit is basically within your master envelope, which is being given in Morse table, and will be a tolerance as far as the production of the bituminous material is concerned. Now the asphalt mix and the Marshall molds are kept in an oven to give a substantial heat so that when you try to cast the molds, the variation in the temperature won't be there. So the molds will be heated, and those heated molds are being feeded by the mixed material which is already mixed in a bituminous mixture, and then are being used for preparing the Marshall molds. For doing the mixing, you need to have a bituminous mixture. The preheated aggregates are being placed in the bowl, and hot asphalt is being added. Now the bowl is mixed using a mixture until the aggregates are well coated with the asphalt which is being poured in the hot aggregates. So this mixing process will ensure that the bituminous material is uniformly mixed with the combination of aggregates, which is basically a combination of 40-20-10 and dust, or 25-20-10 and dust and filler. So this is basically the mixture which is actually a bowl consisting of a blender. So the blender will have a gap between the mold and the mixing units, so that when the blender moves, it gyrates the mixture, it gyrates the aggregates and the bituminous inside, and is getting heated during the process and mixes the mix completely. So in the absence of the bituminous mixture, one can do the pan mixing also, but the problem associated with pan mixing is you are not sure about the mixing quality, because the uniformity and the RPM of the mixing is difficult to maintain. But with experience, one sometimes makes sure that the mixing is being done properly, but the chances of overheating of a particular aggregate or a bituminous content is high when you do a manual mixing using a pan. Then the mix is being transferred into the Marshall molds as shown in the photographs. So when we say that it has to be compacted from both the faces, that means this is the first phase will be the top phase, which is being compacted using the hammer, and the number of blows given for creating a mold is 75 blows. And then you need to turn around the mold and compact the mold again using the 75 blows. So this is how one has to do the compaction of the bituminous Marshall molds, whether it is DBM, BC, SDBC, whatever it is. There are two methods. One is the photograph which is being shown is basically the manual method, where one has to keep the hammer in the standing position exactly vertical, and the other person has to lift the weight and continuously slide by touching the top and making it fall freely on the bottom face to create an impact. So he has to do continuously 75 times on either face. The other way is you can have a mechanized arrangement where you just keep the mold, filled with the bituminous mixes and adjust the fall plate, and automatically with a counter you can ensure that the 75 blows are given. Now the difference between the manual method and the automated method is, in the manual method there is a chance that sometimes you miss to lift the hammer completely onto the top, so that the height of fall may vary depending upon the efficiency of the person who is doing the hammering, because 75 blows on each mold on both the sides, like for each mold you are actually giving 150 blows, which is difficult as far as the compaction is concerned when you do it manually. So there has to be a constant check to make sure that they will not miss the height of fall, and also they will not miss the number of counts, because depending upon the number of blows, the efficiency of compaction depends, and it will have a direct impact on the stability value, the flow value, and the other parameters of the mixes. So once the mold is being compacted, it will be look like something like this. So you can see that the mold, if not being given proper compaction, from the side faces, if you see, you can have a slide coarser particles being projected and voids are being there. So generally the indications are, if the sampling is not done properly, then also you will have these rough spaces on the sides with maximum number of times, or if the compaction is not uniform, or the temperature of the mix has gone below the required temperature, then also you will have a difficulty in getting the compaction, and that will automatically get reflected on the face, on the at least on the side faces of the Marshall molds. So one has to give proper attention once the demolding is done, to see whether the face of the side face of the mold, the Marshall mold, what is being compacted is being properly maintained or not. Once you got the Marshall molds, this can be tested for checking the density of the Marshall mold. The density of the Marshall mold is being checked using weight in air and weight in water. The details of the test we will be covering in separate modules, but just to make sure that for each mold you need to check the density of the mold using water replacement. Then Marshall molds are placed in a water bath before conducting the stability test at a constant temperature. The molds are being placed in the Marshall stability apparatus, which is being configured like it carries a dial gauge and a proving ring as shown in the figure, and the mold is being placed as shown in the figure to make sure that when you apply a load, it will just crush, and it will give you the indication that how much load it generally takes as far as the compaction of the mix is concerned. So this is basically the proving ring, which is being used to measure the load being given on the Marshall mold. In the design of DBM or any asphalt mixers, what we do is we cast the number of molds, we cast the number of Marshall molds by varying the bituminous content, and each mold is being tested for in the Marshall stability apparatus to check the stability value and the flow values. After getting the stability and the flow value at each binder content, we collate the complete data in a tabular form as shown in the figure. So what we call it as the Marshall mold test report data, where the level of compaction is being mentioned, like in this particular case you have given 75 blows on either side. The type of the bitumen or the grade of the bitumen is VG30. The specific gravity of the binder is being given as 1.03. The specific gravity of the aggregate is being noted, and the specific gravity, effective specific gravity of the aggregate is also being noted as 2.635. Now, if you see the extreme left hand side column, which shows the binder content, like for each binder content, which is varying with 0.5%, like it starts from 3.54, 4.55, 5.5. You cast 3 moles at each binder content, whether it is DBM or BC. Now for each mold you have to check the density, you have to check the GMM, you have to check the VMA, that is voids in mineral aggregates, VA, that is air voids, VFB, that is volume filled with bitumen. Then you need to measure the stability in the Marshall stability apparatus. Then apply the required correction factor, and then calculate the corrected stability, and then finally you get the average stability of the 3 moles for that particular bitumen content. And then similarly for that particular bitumen content you get the average flow also. That means you have the average density, you have the average VMA, you have average VA, VFB, average stability, and average flow at each percentage of bitumen content for the design mix. Now what is being done is to interpret the graph which is being conducted. Now you need to plot a graph between the asphalt content and the stability. Then you need to plot a graph between the asphalt content and the density. Then you need to plot a graph between the asphalt content and the percentage air voids. Similarly, you have to plot graph between the asphalt content and then the flow, and you need to plot a graph between the asphalt content and percent voids in mineral aggregates. So what is being done is by plotting the graph with different properties of asphalt, you need to find out the optimum asphalt content under each conditions. Like for example, if you see the design density versus asphalt content, the trend is with the increase in the asphalt content, the density goes up, and then after reaching the peak, it again falls back. So the point where it reaches the maximum value, the corresponding to that particular value, the corresponding bitumen content will be the optimum binder content for getting the maximum density. So this needs to be noted in the design parameter. Then you need to check the graph between the asphalt content and the stability. The graph between the asphalt content and the density and asphalt content versus stability looks like similar, because both increases with the increase in the bitumen content and then decreases. The peak corresponding to the maximum stability, the bitumen content, the corresponding bitumen content is the optimum binder content for achieving the maximum stability. Then you need to check the flow. The flow value, again, the trend is the flow value increases with the increase in the asphalt content. So you need to see that what is the flow range which is being given, and then the mean value is being considered to get the optimum binder. Percentage avoids generally 3 to 5 we take. So at 4%, what is the binder content you get is being noted. The trend is the percentage of air voids decreases with the increase in the asphalt content. So this is how complete picture of different properties of asphalt mixes with respect to the asphalt content. So when we see the percentage voids in mineral aggregates versus asphalt content graph, the percent voids in mineral aggregates generally decreases to a minimum value and then increases. So this is again giving you some value on the VMA part. In order to calculate the optimum binder content, what one does is asphalt contents are determined which yields the maximum stability, maximum density, air voids, and the 70% VFB. The optimum binder content is the average of the 3 or 4 values determined from the above bitumen content. For example, if you see a binder content with maximum stability is say 4%, binder content at maximum density is 5%, binder content at 4% air void is 3.95%, and binder content at 70% of VFB is 4.35%. So the optimum binder content is the average of these four, which is 4 plus 4, 5 plus 3.95 plus 4.35 divided by 4, which is nothing but 4.33%. Actually, it is 4.325, which is being rounded off in this particular case to 4.33%. Now, what is required is at 4.33% binder content, what is the flow you are getting from the graph? If it is within the limit, then the optimum binder content is acceptable. And for that 4.33% binder content, what is the VMA you are getting? The VMA we are getting from the graph is 13.1%, and the specified limit is minimum 12%. So it is above the minimum specified. Hence, 4.33% binder content is acceptable to be used as the optimum binder content for that particular mixes. This is one way of testing. This is one way of calculating the optimum binder content. The other way, you can check the binder content for maximum stability, VMA, air voids, and VFB, and see that at what percentage it is meeting the requirement. Like for example, if you see a graphical representation of a binder content for maximum stability, binder content for VMA, binder content for air voids, binder content for VFB, there is a band which is being marked by two vertical lines, which is crossing the values of 4% and 4.5% bitumen. That means for a bitumen content between 4 to 4.5%, the mix will be able to maintain the required properties under all the four categories, which is being covered as the gray line. So that means your bitumen content should lie between 4 and 4.5%, and then you have to take the average of 4 and 4.5, which is nothing but 4.25. So at that 4.25%, what is the flow you are getting, and at that 4.25% binder content, what is the density you are getting. So these two parameters will ensure that your optimum binder content is being in the range, and you can check the or you can calculate the optimum binder content even with this method also. So then you need to check the refusal density at the optimum binder content for the DBM mixes, because we are discussing the DBM, so we will be talking specific to the DBM mixes only. So what is the refusal density? The voids in the mix, that is VIM, are important parameters as far as heavy traffic is concerned. Refusal density of bituminous mixes needs to be determined accurately to predict the life of the pavements subjected to heavy traffic while maintaining the 3% of the air voids in the mixes. So what is being done is you need to cast the mold, which is earlier being casted at 75 blows on each face. Now that has to be casted with 300 blows on each face, depending upon the type of the traffic you have designed the pavement. It can be from 300 to 400, 400 to 500. So it again depends upon the MSA and the life which you are actually predicting for. So in this particular case, you have done the refusal density at 300 blows on each side, and then you have checked what is the density, or what is the density, average density of the mold which is being casted at 300 blows on each phase. Normal molds are being casted with 75 blows. Now this mold is being casted with 300 blows. That means you have increased 4 times. You have increased 4 times the energy level to cast the mold. Now with that increase in energy level, the average air voids what is being achieved is being calculated, and if it is within the range of 3%, that means in this particular case it is 3.08, that means the road is stable for heavier loads also. After getting the refusal density values, you can do a confirmatory trial using the optimum binder content to check all the parameters with the conventional method of casting the molds, which is 75 blows on either side, and the details being given similar to that which is being used for the Marshall mold report, like VG30 bitumen with a specific gravity, bulk specific gravity of binder being 1.03, bulk specific gravity of aggregate being 2.608, effective specific gravity of aggregate being 2.635. Now in this particular case, instead of varying the binder content, we have kept the binder content at 4.33%, and then we have casted the number of moles. It can be 3 moles, it can be 6 moles, depending upon the availability of the time and the accuracy you want, but minimum 3 moles are required in order to understand the variations. And then check at 4.33% what is the value of density you are getting, what is the value of stability you are getting, what is the flow value you are getting, what is the air voids you are getting at 4.33%, and what is the volume filled with bitumen. So if these values which are the actual values being tested at optimum binder content are meeting with the requirements which is being interpolated using the Marshall test report, where you have changed the bitumen content, that means your optimum binder content is perfect and you can continue working with this optimum binder content. Then the second parameter is what is the loss of stability for this bitumen content when the moles are being tested after being kept for 24 hours in a water at 60 degrees Celsius. So of course, when your molds are exposed to 60 degrees centigrade for a larger duration of time, the stability of the mold might get affected. The VA, that is air voids, sometimes get affected. There will be some change in the VFB, but definitely there will be change in the stability. So what is the change in the stability and what is the change in the flow value is being calculated. And if it is within the 20% difference, that means loss of stability. If it is less than 20%, that means the mix is acceptable and you can continue with the regular design mixes. So this is how you make the confirmatory test for the optimum binary content for any bituminous mixes, especially in this particular module we talked about the DBM mixes. Then after doing the lab trials, you can continue with your hot mix plant trials, where you can feed the recipe, get the material, cast the molds, test the mold, and check whether the results are meeting or whether the properties are within the limit or not. And once that is being done, that means your confirmatory trial is finished and you are done with your bituminous mix designs. So to summarize this module, we talked about the definition of DBM. We talked about the purpose of the DBM mixes, how the mix design of DBM can be done using MS2 method, what are the requirements of DBM mixes, the importance of mix design in DBM in order to arrive at the optimum binder content, how we can optimize the optimum binder content, and what is the need of hot mix plant trials in order to make sure that your mix design is proper. In the next module, we will be covering the importance of selection of binder content in asphalt mixes as far as the durability of the asphalt layers are concerned. Till then, thank you very much for watching.